So Hearthstone's new expansion just got announced. It's called Showdown in the Badlands. It is a Wild West themed expansion, and it's bringing with it the return of some Reno style cards, Highlander cards, no duplicate cards. We're going to see a couple no duplicate legendaries in this set. We actually have 2 new keywords in this expansion, Quick Draw and Excavate, which we'll get to very, very shortly. But first, I wanted to take a look at Elise, my favorite Hearthstone character of all. She's back. She's a Badlands savior. She's a priest legendary at 8 mana, a 5/5 with Battle Cry. If your deck has no duplicates, summon 4/4 copies of 4 random minions in your deck. So here we've got a no duplicate payoff card, and in particular in this case, it seems like one that's going to support running some kind of big, high value, scary sort of stuff in your deck. Think about things like big meaty death rattles, big lifestealy taunt minions. Think about Titans, for instance. Getting the priest Titan pulled out of your deck, it's going to be able to be active right away. So being able to cheat this many things out of your deck all at once can really help you find specific awesome stuff, very much like that Titan. Now, of course, you know, you're going to have a little bit less consistency because you're running a Reno deck here. You don't want to have duplicates if you're running Elise. So you're not going to be able to stack up, you know, 2 of every awesome minion you can imagine and hit those really, really consistently. So introducing some inconsistency, but still, I think that payoff is potentially very, very large. 8 mana does, of course, come down pretty late in the game, but for Priest, that's historically not been a problem. They can still make some really big swing turns on turn 8, hitting a rush minion, hitting a big defensive minion, hitting a big value minion, hitting a Titan. All of that is possible, and a various mix of those, I think, will still offer you plenty of recovery and reaction through this card. It's not like you're just passively plopping stats down on board. So it's not necessarily going to leave you too far behind, but sometimes it will just be plopping stats down on board. And just getting a big, nice, threatening board of 5 things can be important if you're trying to turn the corner and in the game on board, say against a deck like an aggro deck that's scraping together that last little bit of damage. I need to end this game. Boom, I'm going to slam this. And between the minions themselves and potentially even just the onboard pressure itself, there are some really crazy opportunities here for a card like Elise Badlands Savior. So no, an 8 mana card might not work very well in all classes, but I think in Priest with various, late game control style priests, Elise actually feels like a pretty reasonable fit, and I'm excited for that because I love freaking Elise, and she looks cool here, like Wild West Elise, but still has some very nice magical elements, a cool staff and stuff. So meshing those worlds together nicely. So moving on, we've got some more legendaries to take a look at, but first I wanted to talk about the new keywords, one of which is Quick Draw, which you'll see here on Trolley Problem. Quick Draw means if you play the card the turn you draw it, then it's going to have some kind of bonus effect. Here you'll see it will not activate its discard effect if you play it right away. So Trolley Problem is a 3 mana spell here for Warlock. It actually blows my mind that this isn't a choose one card for Druid. The whole premise of the Trolley Problem is that you have to make a really tough decision. And you don't make any decisions here, really. I mean, you kind of do, I guess, with where you're attacking with your tram cars. But I don't know. The very awesome flavor in that it's the Trolley Problem, but also a little bit of a miss there. I'm so sad this is not like a Druid card. Anyway, 3 mana Trolley Problem. Discard your lowest cost spell. Summon 2 3/3 tram cars with Rush. And then if you quick draw this, play it right away when you draw it. You don't have to actually discard anything. So honestly, some pretty nice bodies here, right? A couple 3/3s on turn 3 with Rush. That's the sort of thing that can really help you keep up in the early to mid game. Even if you're playing this in a more aggressive deck, you might actually be pretty happy just to get a couple bodies on board. But certainly if you're playing this in a slower deck and you're willing to potentially give up some of that value, just help you clean up some of your opponent's early game cards. So maybe a little bit of a miss here from a flavor for me, at least. Maybe you guys can explain this a little better in your brains and tell me why this is a good example of the Trolley Problem in action. But I think having 2 tramp cars and being able to choose both directions, I don't know. Something is amiss there to me, but ultimately, I think still a pretty solid little card. There are, of course, even bonuses you might be able to realize with the discard here. If you're able to line that up on some of those nice payoff discard cards, we've got a few of those still floating around in standard format. I'm sure wild format has a billion ways to break any kind of discard card, so that's scary. But may have bonuses, pretty good at a base level, awesome with quick draw, and might even be worth the value sometimes too, because Warlock can just move through so many cards that giving one up in hand's not a problem. So a couple 3/3s early with Rush does feel pretty nice. So moving on, we've got another keyword here. It's called Excavate, and this is a little 2-mana 1/1 neutral kobold miner here. There's a lot of like mining themed stuff in this set. And excavating a treasure is this new kind of system, new keyword thing that's going to happen where basically each time you excavate, you're going to kind of dig deeper into the excavate pool of treasure cards. So here I've got a nice little graphic of all of the 15 treasure cards. So you're going to excavate one of these common cards. You're going to get a 1-mana 2/2 with Rush Escaping Trog, a 1-mana rock that deals 3 damage, a 1-mana water source that restores 3 health and draws a card, a pouch of coins that gives you 2 coins, or a Fool's Azurite that discovers a 2-cost card. It costs 0. So first time you get one of those, and by the way, those are all pretty dang good. Like, they actually are really strong. They do feel like treasure level, power level, which is insane. So basically with this, you pay this kind of 2-mana tax. You're not very happy about the miner itself, obviously, but you're getting yourself a nice card and creating the next step in the excavate chain as well, because next time you play an excavate card, you're going to get one of these rare cards in the second row. Living Stone is a 2-mana 2/4 with Taunt. Death Rattle, summon a random 2-cost minion. The Canary is a 2-mana 2/1 beast. Battlecry, return an enemy minion to its owner's hand. So, kind of a sap there effect, basically. The Glowing Glyph is give a minion and its neighbors +1/+2. The Falling Stalactite deals 3 damage to a minion and the enemy hero. And then the Azurite Chunk allows you to discover a 3-cost card. It costs 0. You'll note the Azurite chain there kind of all match up. And there are some of these that certainly seem to follow a bit of a path here. But again, really nice effects, I mean, these don't maybe feel quite as like crazy efficient as the 1-cost cards, but, still really significant. Glowing Glyph is like really nice buff if you have the board, that sort of stuff. Sap is really nice. And then finally, the third tier here is Epic. The Ogre Fist Boulder is the most brilliant thing I've ever seen in my life. That right there makes up for any sins on the trolley problem because it's genius. It's a 3-mana location. It sets a minion stats to 6/7, which obviously that can be an enormous buff. Any like 1/1 that's left behind to attack, instant +5 is crazy, which, Kobold Miner could be left behind on occasion. The Motherlode Drake is a 4/3 Rush, Divine Shield, Lifesteal Dragon. So basically like a 3-mana Ziliax there. That's kind of nuts. The Steelhide Mole is Taunt, Reborn, and can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. So really sticky, annoying body for people to deal with. Collapse will deal 3 damage to all enemies. So both board clear and face damage, and the Azurite Gem will allow you to discover a 5-cost card. It costs 0. So remember, there are spells in that pool too. Those are cards, not just minions. So some potential pretty exciting stuff there, especially for classes that might have like, really good set of 5-drops. So all in all, these are really nice. Now, when you get to the end of the chain and you hit an epic, you restart, it says, to commons again. I don't think that's going to feel that bad. These commons still feel really good because they're so cheap. 1 mana, like, man, you can do some cool stuff with it. So, your first 3, you get, common, rare, epic, then you start over, common, rare, epic. We're also told there are going to be specific classes. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact classes, but some people are going to have legendary cards that they can get to on the 4th hit of their excavate. Certain classes are going to have class specific legendary treasures. Let me just look that up real quick. Oh yeah, 5 classes are working with the Bloodrock Mining Company. Death Knight, Mage, Rogue, Warlock, and Warrior. These expert miners are able to get even deeper in their excavations. Each of these classes has a class-specific 4-mana legendary excavate treasure that they get when they excavate for the 4th time. Eureka. Yeah, so pretty exciting. I think this is a really cool system. A lot of neat new token artwork. This feels really good. I don't know. Well, I don't know if it's powerful necessarily, but I think it could be. These are some really nice cards. And just playing like 1 bad card here is not that bad to get some awesome stuff started. I don't know if you need to commit like a ton of this in your deck. Maybe just 1 cycle of excavates is enough, like 4 cards, just to make sure you can get to that 3rd one or something. But these become pretty interesting. Imagine like bounce effects with these in Rogue. There are all kinds of interesting ways to think about how to use these, and they feel really fun. I'm going to be playing these a lot, I think. So moving on to some legendary cards, we got Sheriff Barrel Brim. He is a new 4-mana 4/4 Battlecry. If you have 20 or less health, open the Badlands Jail, which is a new there's a frog in the jail. I just saw that's really funny. New location here, neutral, of course, because he's neutral, and it allows you to make a minion go dormant for 3 turns. So if you're falling behind a little bit, you know, on turn 4, you've been pushed down to 20. This gets you a 4/4 on board, and of course you'll be able to immediately utilize that location once it's in play, so you can immediately make something go dormant. That kind of feels like Maiev almost, the legendary card from long ago in Ashes of Outland that wasn't very good, even though we all thought it was going to be good. But I think importantly, you get to use the jail again in the future, so it's not just kind of a one-time effect. So you can keep that same minion locked out for a long time if you wanted, or, you know, later in the game just remove, you know, stall through something bigger later on, basically. So giving you a little bit of time here against your opponent. And with Reno decks in action, I think cards like this are actually very likely to see play. Any slower Reno deck is going to need stuff that fills the curve, that has some defensive utility, that helps them stall out into their late game sort of plays. And I think Sheriff Barrel Brim is absolutely going to be the kind of card that fits into a lot of homes because of that. I don't think this is necessarily that great outside of, you know, no duplicate decks specifically. But, you know, it's possible that control decks still do value this from time to time. So all cards get a little bit better in Reno metas, but not necessarily good outside of those Reno decks specifically, because a lot of decks just have really directed game plans. Things are looking to do so specifically. I don't know that multiple dormants over multiple turns is worth it. Now, there is one other angle for this card that might be interesting, which is the same thing we talked about with Maiev, and that is being able to make like a combo card dormant. You know, Malagos being the like classic example. I got all this crazy spell damage, I'm going to make that dormant and then pop off later. You know, maybe there are modern examples, something like Sif, for instance, or something. But that's pretty iffy as always. It is a little better than something like Maiev, though, because with Maiev, when we tried to do that, you had to do it in the same turn. This time you can spend the mana in advance, and then the same turn you play the Malagos-esque card, you can make it go dormant right away. So there is, I think, a little bit more possibility there for that. Just something to keep an eye on. All right, so next up is actually a card that should be in the game right now, as I understand it. This is the kind of early card we always get when an expansion is announced. I think you just get it for free if you log in. It's Thunderbringer, an 8-mana 6/6 elemental beast neutral with Taunt and Death Rattle. Summon an elemental and a beast from your deck. So specific recruit style effect here means you can potentially create some really nice rewarding targets here off of the Thunderbringer. We've also got some Death Rattle synergies to explore on this one, and it is an elemental beast itself as well, so a couple different potential minion type synergy lines here are possible as well if you're trying to play towards elemental or beast stuff specifically. So definitely a few interesting angles to explore with this card. You know, things that come to mind for me immediately are sort of bigger hunter decks that like summoning, you know, King Crushes and sort of things from their deck. Elemental decks have not been in a great space lately, but there are still, you know, always good elemental cards laying around that are, you know, just accessible to everybody. You don't have to have, you know, an elemental deck to still benefit from this pulling an elemental. So I'm sure there is some class out there that can find, you know, a good just big elemental that they're happy. I mean, honestly, like, okay, warrior, right? Like, here's an elemental and a beast. So there you go. You got some backup plans in place if you need it here already for warrior. Probably not the best example, but as you can see, there's just like good little stuff, and then occasionally good big stuff too that the classes are going to be probably okay to pull. You know, Mage has some elemental things floating around. I think we're going to see some elemental shaman stuff popping back up again later in this video. So yeah, just basically something to put in your back pocket and think about. I don't see any like super obvious big crazy synergies for this right now where this feels like it breaks it because it cheats out two specific things that are so strong. And at 8 mana, this is a pretty slow effect since it's not active. You're kind of passively sitting there waiting for the opponent to pop this potentially. The taunt is nice that it forces the hand there. So maybe you see this in a greedier like Death Rattle taunt defensive package, especially in a Reno deck down the road once this expansion hits. So, you know, sort of slow, sort of situational, specific a little bit to some deck building requirements, but I think some potential there, specifically because of that taunt. And there are just so many different ways to slice this card that you're hopeful it can find a home through at least one of them. So moving on over to Hunter here, we've got Theldurin the Lost, a new 4-mana 3/4 legendary. Battlecry if your deck has no duplicates. So another Reno card here. I should clarify, this is gonna, I know somebody's gonna comment with it. when I say Reno, I'm using that as a name of the archetype. Like Reno is not in standard format right now. It would be really nice if that changed, because I don't think we have any neutral no duplicate support in the core set right now. But anyway, he's not in standard. Reno is just the archetype, the no duplicate archetype, right? Like I think we called them Reno decks when Zephrys was the thing, but hopefully that makes sense. Anyway, a Highlander card, a no duplicate card, a Reno card, gain immune this turn and attack all enemies, which is awesome. That actually sounds like a great payoff here early in the game. That's a fantastic board clear, right? Like just attacking everybody is insane. Getting a little face damage, getting a minion left behind, that's actually kind of nuts good. And if you are able to actually buff this in hand in some way, it could be even crazier and even scarier, right? Like if you could scale these stats up, that might even keep up into the mid to late game and push for some crazy face damage as well. So I think at a base level, already a really nice rewarding Reno sort of card. And then it has that potential to keep up as well as your deck is built to support it. But, you know, worst case scenario, even in the late game, it's not even that bad. If you're hitting some 5/5s here and there, it's free, it's immune, it doesn't hurt anything. You're getting a little bit of chip damage. You know, there'll be some lethals where you don't care about the board at all. You're just happy to hit the opponent for 3 or more. So this card looks awesome. I love this dude just running up and punching everybody. That's a really satisfying sort of flavor feel. And also this effect looks really good, and the kind of thing that feels like a rewarding enough payoff for, I think, a Reno deck. What did I say? Buff it in hand. Look what we got. The Messenger Buzzard, a 2-mana 1/2 beast with Death Rattle. Draw a beast. Okay, so we're getting some beasts back in hand. And then give minions in your hand +1/+1. Of course, buffing that beast in hand, but also buffing cards like your Thelder in the Lost. So he's already a 4/5. We're already feeling even better. We can clear some even nicer boards. And this sort of stuff, you know, decent in its own right, just cycling through some beasts, getting you some nice hand buff action. So yeah, this card I think has a lot of different payoffs, you know, filling up the hand itself, which is nice. When it dies, that feels really good. You got Death Rattle synergies, you got minion buff synergies. It just does a lot. Like the 1/2 stat line, yes, that's boring in its own right, but it's paying off so much that seems like it's going to be worth it to me. That's just a lot of stats given back, hand refill given back. What more can you ask for in a card like this? If it had good stats, it would be completely busted, right? So you can already see this kind of coming together a little bit. A beast, Death Rattle, Reno deck with Felderin is this crazy big payoff, whether that's a mid-game board swing or some late-game board clear into lethal sort of plays feel really possible for this. So I like this little hand buff hunter package coming together already, and I've only seen 2 cards of what I presume will be many more. All right, so next up is the Blast Mage Miner, a new 6-mana 4/4 Battlecry. Excavate a treasure, and for each card in your hand, deal 1 damage to a random enemy. So this is nice that it's giving you a card in hand through that Excavate, and then also giving you some nice missile effects here. Keep in mind this can go face if your opponent's board is empty. This actually could be a crazy amount of damage hitting them in the face. You know, it's probably not the most likely outcome, though. Usually we have some little boards lingering around, so this will be a nice little mix of a little bit of a board clear while still pushing through that Excavate value. You know, notably, we saw that Mage is one of the classes that has the 4-mana Legendary Treasure, which we haven't seen yet, but you can imagine like a turn 10 where you play the Blast Mage Miner, you get the 4-mana awesome Legendary Treasure you're expecting, and that's some kind of like insane turn together and some sort of super powerful combination. But even, you know, even as early as turn 7, like getting a one cost treasure, if you're in that stage of the cycle, could be a really powerful sort of thing. Just use this to stabilize on board a little bit, get a little chip damage, and then keep moving through your treasures in a nice way. So yeah, this looks good. I like that it can go face. That's always a nice bonus for cards like this. All right, so next up, I'm assuming this card has to be the Death Knight Azurite Treasure. Now those all have legendary gems, which used to indicate it was a collectible card and not a token. There's a specific note in the patch notes or the announcement blog that says like, hey, these have rarities, but they're not collectible cards. They're just excavate treasures. So this card is so insanely powerful. I'm just assuming it cannot be a normal collectible card. It has to be the Death Knight Azurite 4-mana legendary payoff card like we talked about. And I didn't see this one initially because it's been added to the press site or whatever. So this is Azurite Rat, a 4-mana 5/5 elemental beast. Battlecry, resurrect your highest cost minion, give it +2/+2 reborn and lifesteal, which is just insane. Obviously, like premium stats, crazy resurrect, bonus buff, reborn lifesteal are insane keywords. So like crazy death rattle synergies, you know, you don't really care what you hit on this. It's still going to feel like a really nice, rewarding sort of play. So you don't have to save it for a specific target. Just slam this as soon as you get it and just start swarming the board really hard. Obviously, you know, any bonuses with rush or death rattle or whatever are going to feel great, but I don't think they're necessary. There's even also like some combo potential with this where you have some specific high cost thing you've killed and you want to bring it back for only 4 mana later in the game. So yeah, obviously this feels like a really, really powerful sort of excavate payoff, and we're going to see some excavate Death Knight cards as well. But keep in mind, I do not think this is a collectible card. I'm sure with more data you guys have than I have recording this real quickly, you'll be able to confirm that in the comments. All right, next up is the Harrowing Ox, a 7 mana 7/7 undead beast, single frost rune for Death Knight, taunt and battle cry. If you've excavated twice, your next card this turn costs 7 less. So this is a little bit of an excavate payoff. We're also going to see an actual excavate card for Death Knight, and it feels like a pretty neat one. We've seen lots of this, like make your you know, big taunt swing thing cheap, and that has worked really well, like Light Ray and Paladin. I think there's been a few examples really in Druid where if you can find some way to cheat these taunts down, it helps you cement a given board, create a swing turn, pay off for all the kind of tempo you've sacrificed early. That in combination with treasures, to me, feels like it's going to be pretty crazy. You know, imagine a Harrowing Ox, and then, you know, even if you only play the Azurite Rat, still insane. You know, you get a 3 mana 7/7 effectively and an Azurite Rat. That's a nutty sort of turn. I say 3 mana effectively because, of course, this isn't really always going to be 0 mana. Only if you play exactly another 7 cost card is it going to feel like the Harrowing Ox has that 7 mana discount. Very often you might only be able to play a 4 or a 5 or something, but still 2 mana 7/7, 3 mana 7/7 taunt. All of those are still going to feel like probably good little swings in combination with whatever other card you might want to play. And you occasionally might play a Frost Queen Cindergosa that's 7 mana and feel like you did get a free 7/7 taunt as a bonus. And those sorts of turns could feel pretty nice. So all in all, cheap swingy taunt bodies like this have proven themselves, I think, enough in Hearthstone that I do trust this one could also be pretty good. So next up here, we have an actual excavate card for Death Knight. It is a frost 3 mana spell, deal 3 damage and excavate a treasure. This feels good to me, man. Just a little bit of bonus damage in frost decks. Use this to clear if you need to. Use this to go face if you want. Getting a treasure on top of it, just, you know, yeah, you're basically paying kind of a 1 mana-ish tax to get your treasure in this case, which seems to be kind of the case. And a lot of those are going to be worth more than 1 mana. They're going to make up the difference, basically, pretty quickly. Like, yes, they have their own cost, but the bonus effects they're offering are so strong, and moving you into the really powerful stuff like the Azurite Rat is so worth it that this just feels like a no-brainer to me. You're not really sacrificing much at all, and the payoff feels really nice. So moving on here, we've got a couple shaman cards. Nothing too crazy with these, but some elemental synergy, I guess. For this one, the Living Prairie, a 5 mana 5/4. Battlecry if you played an elemental last turn. Summon 2 3/3 cows with Rush. I love the art and the storyline on this one, I guess. So yeah, for an elemental deck, this is a lot of bodies slamming down. You get some immediate reactivity with those 3/3s, help you trade in. You also get you know, your nice 5/4 attached to the head of those as well. So, you know, is Elemental Shaman going to have the pieces necessary to feel good? I definitely don't think this card alone is enough to convey that, but, you know, the building blocks are coming together. There are a few lingering elemental things in Shaman left behind. I suspect this is kind of an indicator or a hint that we're going to get a lot more since this came up on the reveal of the expansion. So I would definitely keep an eye out on Elemental Shaman. It might feel like too honest of a package these days compared to a lot of what Hearthstone does, but if they get some really big cheap stuff, some crazy elemental synergy stuff, absolutely a possibility. This card does punch a lot of numbers for its cost. And then next up, we have Dehydrate, a 3 mana spell for Shaman, another quick draw card here. So remember, this is going to cost 1 if you draw it immediately. That makes it better in any decks that are like drawing through and cycling through a lot of cards, because you're more likely to you know, hit these all at once and create some like big swing turns basically off a lot of cheap stuff. This is just lifesteal, deal 4 damage to a minion. I don't know how many versions of this Shaman needs, but I feel like they've gotten a lot, and this is in a pretty competitive space already compared to a lot of other cards. So that does make me feel a little bit iffy with this card. Just because, like, is it really carving out a unique enough space? Is the quick draw really, you know, powerful enough to feel like a nice benefit here? So it's fine. These have worked okay in the past, just a little flat. We've seen this same thing for Shaman so often. Elise Badlands Savior is a 4-star card. Trolley Problem is a 3-star card. Kobold Miner is a 4-star card. Sheriff Barrel Brim is a 4-star card. Thunderbringer is a 2-star card. Blast Mage Miner is a 4-star card. Felderin the Lost is a 5-star card. Messenger Buzzard is a 4-star card. Harrowing Ox is a 4-star card. Reap What You Sow is a 4-star card. Living Prairie is a 3-star card. Dehydrate is a 2-star card. So there you go. That's review number 1 for Showdown in the Badlands. I actually think there's some pretty cool stuff here. Really excited to see Reno decks return. I love playing that way because it adds so much variance to game states. You're not always playing the exact same sequence of cards all the time. Different patterns show up, different stuff. You're kind of digging deeper into your collection to build decks, which makes unique things happen. So really, really pumped about that. I think having 2 cool new keywords is fun. Activate in particular looks really fun. These cards are cool. I always love when we get like unique tokens like that, and some pretty fun legendary designs. This guy looks awesome and really fun. Kind of scary good. These like payoff treasure cards seem totally nuts. I thought this was a real card for like 10 seconds and I was like, no, it can't be. I'm still not totally sure, I guess, but you guys will probably confirm in the comments below. It just can't be, right? It feels like an Azurite treasure down here on this far right side. So it has to be one of the treasures. Anyway, thanks for watching. Share your thoughts on these cards down below. I'm actually probably going to try to play some Thunderbringer on stream later tonight. I haven't streamed Hearthstone in a while, so come watch this in duels, maybe some standard. And yeah, look forward to more reviews. So thanks for watching, and until next time, game on.